Yo, what's up, guys? It's Evil. So, how are you? Hope everything's going well. Wanted to discuss the tariffs today. Um, yeah. Well, it's Monday. They've been in effect for a little while. We have the equation that they used to calculate the tariffs and a little bit of their reasoning. I don't really trust their reasoning that much. It doesn't seem to hold through. But we can use the numbers they have given us to figure out how they came to the tariffs that they used on this occasion. I think they gave us the actual numbers because mathematically that's how it came out. But I'm going to go through that a little bit, and at the end I'll talk about them. Uh, but yeah, so let's look at it. T, our change in TI is equal to XI minus MI all over. I don't know what these Greek letters are, so we're going to call them E, P, and MI. So XI minus MI over E times P times MI. Looking at this, well, let's look down here. Up here, they've said XI is equal to total exports. They say it right here. I don't know why they use the greater than zero thing. It's kind of, I think it's assumed that it's going to be a number, and it's probably not going to be a negative unless you're doing some weird kind of math. Which, so anyway, I think that's just there to make it look fancier, to be honest. Um, E, they say, represents elasticity. XI, we're looking for MI. MI is total imports from the country. So what we take in versus what we send out. Using those numbers and the numbers found down in the parameter selection, that's where we get the numbers for E and P, as we're calling them here. E, you'll see right here, was set at 4. Okay, that's important. Remember that number, 4. P is set to 0.25. So 4, 1/4 of 4 is 1. 1 times MI, mathematically, it doesn't matter. They cancel itself out. It's not relevant to the entire equation. Okay, you could remove those two numbers and it would not change the outcome at all. All right. So looking at that, I created this little design right here, just to simplify it down for you guys a little bit. It's exports or tariffs are equal to exports minus imports, all over imports times 1. Um, yeah, I think it's really weird that the Trump administration is trying to like make it look smarter than it is. If they have a good reason for using this equation, I would think they'd use it, unless they think that their supporters can't do math, which if I was MAGA, that would piss me off, but they're never going to say that. So, you know. Um, but it seems not that great. So exports minus imports mean if we're sending them more than they send us, that means we're going to have a positive number. If they send us more than we send them, this final number is going to be negative. Um, I think probably it would have been smarter if they'd done MI minus XI, but whatever. Anyways, the negative number is made positive when they do tariffs because you can't have negative tariffs. That's not how that works. And there is a minimum cap of 10%. So anything that, using this equation, would have been less than a 10% tariff was bumped up to a 10% tariff. That's England, France, Australia, quite a few of the NATO countries, actually. And one of the reasons for that is because a lot of the NATO countries buy their weapons directly from us because of these free trade agreements, which help boost up our military manufacturing, which allows us to buy that same stuff for less because that company can make more factories and be able to sell to the entire world, and we can just access those factories for free because they're ours. Um, and the rest of the world pays for it because they're paying that company to have those factories as well. It's pretty complicated. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, I recommend you look at a guy named Perun. He breaks it down pretty simply. He's got graphs and shit like that. He's a great communicator of industrial war complexes. But looking at this tariff system, it doesn't seem to make sense because that's like our expertise as America. We're taxing people who send us stuff that we then turn into really high tech shit. And they send us food and stuff like that because our brightest people are born on a farm and end up at NASA. So that's kind of. I'm not saying that that exact situation is happening fucking across Oklahoma. Okay, I'm just saying as an example, like metaphorically. We as the society though are moving towards post-industrialization. Elon Musk is building robots to like replace people in dangerous jobs. I think this is designed to build up like logging and mining and coal mining, whatever, um, quite a bit. But like how the coal miners in Appalachia are pretty angry at the government at the moment because all the coal mine jobs are going away and they don't like Democrats wanting to clean whatever. It would seem to me that building up these non-skilled labor industries, no offense, like I'm not saying that insultingly, it's just like a skilled labor that you didn't go to school for. I'm a delivery driver right now. That's a non-skilled labor job. I'm talking about myself here a little bit. Um, but if you build up these non-skilled labor industries, they're eventually going to be replaced by robotics, and so you're just creating more people to get screwed over when Elon Musk finally releases a working robot. Which I grant you, looking at the stock market, it seems that's not going to happen for quite a while. But we are getting close to that level of automation. I worked at a factory for a little while. I remember we had a robot arm on one of the lines, um, and the robot arm could pretty much do what a person could do. They don't slow down generally unless they're broken, in which case you have a mechanic that's there to fix it. The thing is, uptime is 100% until it breaks down. So it's always doing its job. It's always going. It's always moving. Something that might take two people to do, it's doing alone, and only for the cost of the electricity bill, not for an hourly wage, and not for benefits and things like that. So they liked having the robot arm up. When it went down, they had two non-skilled dudes show up and do it, and the mechanic fixed it. But eventually, those robot arms are going to get to the point where they're not going to go down every week like ours did, right? Those robot arms are eventually going to be able to run these factories, and I envision a future where these factories are run by a handful of managers, and a handful of mechanics and electricians, and probably like line operators and people who feed raw material into these machines and stuff like that. They're probably not going to be like there anymore. There might be a couple, but it's not going to be like 80% of the factory like it was 5 years ago when I was doing that. Um, yeah. So I think probably we want to be like building up our skilled labor job force. We want to be incentivizing trade schools. We want to be incentivizing colleges. Um, Military is a good one, I guess. It's not for everyone, but if that's for you, um, yeah. But it seems like Trump wants to like build up this labor force that is eventually going to get destroyed. That's the point that I'm trying to make here, and he's using these tariffs to do it in a way because he wants to protect our industries. But it's not going to work out in the long run, and it wasn't well thought out. You can see how our allies around the world are reacting to this. They're all pissed. I'm not saying any of them are going to jump out of NATO, but I am saying probably the next time we do in Iraq, they're not going to be there like shoulder to shoulder day of, like they were in Iraq. They're probably going to be like, oh, love and kisses. God bless. Same prayers for you. Probably something more like that, which makes America at the end of the day a lot weaker. Um, yeah, that's all I got to say about it. I think it's not a great thing, but love y'all. Have a good night.